moving on to our next section, which is our picks of the year. So, we normally do our picks of the week, where we talk about TV shows, movies, games, or whatever we've been doing in the last week and enjoying, we want to talk to you guys about. But this time we're actually going to do a picks of the year, where we're going to look at a couple of games, maybe a couple of movies that we've really enjoyed that have been released this year that we have been our picks of the year. So we're going to take it in turns. And we're going to start with Anti-Chris. So, Anti-Chris, what are your picks of the year? Tell us.
I made a whole fucking top 10.
Hey, chat, Twitch chat, watching live. If you've got your own, jump in, sound off.
That's right.
Yes, please do. Yeah, jump in if you're agreeing with us or you've got your own ones to throw out there. Let us know. Please do.
I made a whole fucking top 10.
It's not what we asked for, but go ahead.
I'm just going to shoot it out there. From the bottom to the top, number 10, Grand Blue Fantasy Versus. Solid fucking fighting game coming from Psy Games and Arc System Works. I reviewed it earlier, I believe in like January, February. 13 Sentinels, Aegis of Rim from Atlas. That's also a really great. Like usually these are the same guys who did the Dragon's Crown games or the Vanillaware games.
Yeah.
And they switched gears from doing like these action adventure character driven narratives to now a full-blown tactical RPG that's actually got a very in-depth story. It's a very meta narrative. It's super involved, and it's like,
how's the translation?
Good. The translation is actually very good, and combat system's actually pretty cool. It's less artistic as far as combat is concerned, which it would be my only reservation towards the game. But other than that, like, the game's solid. 8, Hyrule Warriors, Age of Calamity is a great Musa game. Resident Evil 3, I know that Scotty's probably gonna be like, what the fuck is wrong with you? But the Resident Evil 3 remake, I fucking loved. Under Night In Birth EXE, Late Clear, another great fighting game coming up from French Bread, who did Melty Blood. The PSO2 NA release has to go on there because it reignited my love for PSO. Ghost of Tsushima, Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, Final Fantasy VII Remake, and my game of the year is Yakuza Like a Dragon. That game is absolutely fantastic. It was really hard choosing between Like a Dragon and FF7 Remake.
Yeah.
But I think that just the sheer amount of content and character that Like a Dragon has compared to Final Fantasy VII, which is a great cinematic experience, but a game that you've kind of played already nonetheless.
Right.
I had to give it to Sega. So
that's awesome.
Nice. Good shot.
That's awesome to see a Sega game at the top of someone's list.
I'm surprised how much Sega I have on my or Sega associated I have on my list, because like Grand Blue, that's Arc System Works, and they're on fucking Sega Arcade. 13 Sentinels, that's Atlas. Under Night, that's connected to Arc System Works again. PSO2, and then Yakuza. So like half my list is like associated with Sega, which you never see.
That's wild.
Nice. Any comments from you guys on those at all? Pal,
I haven't played the remake of 3, so I have no opinions yet.
I still need to finish Final Fantasy Remake, but that is an amazing game. Have they announced anything, like what does it upscale or do anything on PS5 yet? Have they released like a
no? What I imagine that they will do is probably release like a huge patch or release the PS5 version along in tandem with the PC version when that comes later on next year.
Right on.
Nice. Speaking of the Final Fantasy VII Remake, I've heard like from some purist, like Final Fantasy VII purist lovers, like for the old PlayStation version, they didn't enjoy the remake as much because they actually cut it. Like, even though visually it's amazing and stuff, they feel like they cut out chunks of the main game, and they had like repeating dungeon bits or something, which to like almost extend the game or something. They said it's just not as much fun. Like visually, it's amazing, but the actual game itself, they're like they're not impressed with it or something.
I'm gonna go with the hard disagree. The most common critique that I hear coming out of the Dissidents is that you're only capturing the first 4 or 5 hours of Final Fantasy VII, and just expanding it and elongating it. What they're doing is that they're telling the story of how the entire group coming out of Midgar got together. And they're twisting the story because they're not trying to do a full-blown remake. The game is very very, I don't think that subversive is the right term, but they are manipulating the way that the storyline is playing out so that later on they can change the timeline. The timeline is essentially broken in Final Fantasy VII. If you didn't know that, you had 8 months to play it. I'm not going to go any more into detail than that, but
I mean, I doubt I'll ever play this because I'm not a huge Final Fantasy fan. But yeah, maybe that's what they were saying. They're saying that I can't remember exactly what they're telling me, but they sort of said they'd cut the game down, but then extended sort of some of the gameplay.
They're just telling the origin story, and they do it quite faithfully. But they explain on why they're breaking that mold or they're breaking that formula. It's not a 1-for-1. And I don't want to get into like spoiler territory outside of what's already been released in games media. Whereas the ending is going to flip the script a bit.
Okay. Planning to have like part 2 and stuff.
Yes, it's already in development.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Like,
and now it's going to be a such nonsense.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're looking at like 3 or 4 parts.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, I don't know why that just feels a bit weird to say, "Hey, this is a remake." Actually, it's not a remake. It's like 4 parts, and we're changing it. Like, it could just be Final Fantasy VII. I don't know, alternate edition. I don't know.
Weird marketing. They had to get people in somehow. And I honestly don't think that they're going to deviate too far away from the actual timeline. There's probably going to be some major changes. Like, you could already see when you're like playing the game and be like, oh, well, you know, comparing it to what took place in 7, where they go from now, where the next major like city hub point is going to be located.
Okay.
To me, here's the way that I look at it is that it's a $60 game and you get your $60 worth. I ran through that game on my first playthrough and it took me about 50 hours to complete. And there was so much more that I could have done. And it's packed. It's packed with a lot of shit.
I think TJ just mentioned the spoilers you were trying to avoid in the Twitch chat, so avoid that if you don't want to see.
Oh dear. Yeah, luckily I actually don't have the Twitch chat on our screen here for the recording because I forgot to actually add that in. But yeah, anyway, yeah. So okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I to be honest, I might just go and play the original one because I don't know. It's one of those games I've also thought I should try and sit down and play, but I just haven't because I've never been a huge fan of Final Fantasy VII or Final Fantasy in general. Sorry. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, Scotty. Let's move on to you, my friend. What are your picks of the year?
I don't play video games. Apparently, that's what it feels like anymore. But no. So almost everything I say is not from 2020 specifically, but 2020 is when I experienced it. So the best part of 2020 for me, or that happened related to us and Megavisions and whatever, was when I streamed and completed the game Tempo on 32X, because I had not ever sat down with that platformer, goofy, cartoony, bug thing game, platformer, I don't know what else to call it. But I did, and the stream is lost forever because Twitch is a piece of shit and doesn't keep their streams up, and I stopped recording. This was before I had an extra hard drive and ran out of space and all that, whatever, excuses. But it was really fun playing through Tempo, discovering how cool that game is with other people watching it as well, and also discovering how cool and crazy that game is, that it's a 32X exclusive, so no one played it. Yeah, it was a fun thing with weird mini games. Played it through the end. Didn't expect to do that. I just kind of wanted to jump in and try it out. But everybody watching enjoyed it. I don't remember. I think you were in there briefly, Anti-Chris. I can't recall if you watched it at all.
Red Jaguar says the slapping game was the best bit, or something.
Yes. Oh, there he is, Red Jaguar. He watched the whole thing. That, thankfully, is a highlight of a pizza eating mini game where that involves domestic violence as well. All around. The summary, and we'll link the clip maybe where you're just following along and hitting a button to the. I still remember the tune in my head because it's like hit button, and it speeds up as you go. There's no visual prompts. It's very just listening to it. But I was in the zone for that, and that's actually a highlight. Thankfully, I think beating the last boss is also a highlight because it did not feel like it was the last boss. That was really fun though. So I'm glad you're there for part of it, Red Jaguar. We're talking about our top 2020 moments and things. The tempo stream was for me. Runners up is Tony Hawk 1 and 2 Remake getting released because there was just a lot of positivity and hype around that release. I feel like it died off almost immediately when that game came out. But it exists and it was fun and everybody was ready for nostalgia, and just with the world in a pandemic and all that, and the world being a different place, everybody was very ready for Tony Hawk 1 and 2. I think I'm kind of on my own talking about that on this podcast right now because I don't think anybody else here cares about it as much. We streamed it.
It was fun. We played it. It was fun. We played it.
Were you part of that? I don't remember. That night is a blur. I suck at that game big time.
Yeah, I saw Tornado Jones playing it and enjoyed watching his stream for a little bit when it first came out. I was like, oh, this seems pretty cool. I can dig this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. I, for one, fell out of it real hard because my hard drive also died shortly after that on my PS4, which might have a little bit to do with how I have so little new games in my lineup here. I didn't get to Last of Us Part 2 till way later, so I can't really say if that's my favorite thing of 2020 yet or not. But it was cool to see Xenocrisis, the indie Smash TV alien xenomorph thing, release on Dreamcast, and I played that with the twin stick Virtual On controller on stream, which was absurd. I had bought that with the intention of showing it off during the marathon, which we still played during the Dreamcast marathon, but not that exact version. So it was still really cool to see that released on another platform, though, because that's a fun game and more people need to play it. And then going into my movies real quick, this must have been the goddamn year of video game documentaries, because a ton released and most of them sucked. Don't watch One Up, or is that what it was called? I think just One Up or something.
Are you talking about the Netflix series?
Yeah, don't watch that one.
Watch that.
The Console Wars was severely lackluster compared to the book. We didn't even talk about it on this podcast. But
I never even watched it. How, like, what?
Somehow they could cram a 1,000-page book into half an hour. Does not work. Watch it because it's short, but don't expect the caliber of the book.
It's the same. It's the same issue with the One Up series, where it's just like it's already information that's been given to you, and it spoon feeds you just a little bit more, I guess, in a bitter way than in One Up, where everything is just like they try to spruce up. Like the production value in One Up is super fucking good, but it's just like this is the ABCs of video game history for you, and if one of us watched it, we're just like, okay, like I can give this to my child and he'll be excited.
Yeah,
that's my problem with a lot of these, because I feel like it's just the same stuff. It's the same guys that we've seen the last 5 to 10 years talk about the same stuff over and over again. It's just maybe it's just now like this stuff isn't really for us anymore. It's just kind of for maybe the other people that might happen to want to watch a video game documentary.
It's good gateway documentaries. Like if for one of us to learn something, go watch The Gaming Historian or some other YouTuber that is only going to pander to people who already know their shit.
Yeah, it was it's just the thing about Console Wars is, and I've given it enough praise, we all have, individually or through this podcast, that it has monumental moments for Sega, but the way they were described in this documentary just does not do them justice. It's probably 45 minutes or so. I remember the documentary is less than an hour, but just not enough compared to especially the Netflix thing. That it's just how do you document something in video games? Because that's such that's like saying I'm going to do a documentary on sports. How the hell do you do that? Rather than or even if you just pick documentary on one sports team is going to take you a lot of time. So doing that with these things, I think nobody's been able to really encapsulate what they want to, I feel, with the ones that I watched this year, I should say. But Insert Coin was good. The Midway documentary, that was really good. I definitely recommend that one. All those in mind, all the documentaries I watched, the two that I want to give a shout out to that were the highlights of my 2020 was Wolfman's Got Nards. Even though it released in 2018, that was the documentary about Monster Squad, which is great. Everybody needs to watch it that is the slightest fan of Monster Squad. I think it was only recently released to the public this year, so it is on Amazon Prime right now, I believe. Wolfman's Got Nards is great. And then the other one is the Final Blockbuster documentary I watched that did come out this year on Blu-ray. I'm not sure if you could stream it anywhere. I don't really know, but I would recommend just grabbing it to support the last blockbuster in the world. It's a fun thing that reminds us that VHS is not dead and that it could come back. But other than that, it's just a fun nostalgia thing about going into stores and or going into rental stores and, you know, spending an hour in there to rent a couple games and movies you'll watch the whole weekend. So I can't recommend Blockbuster enough.
I bought a VHS player in 2020, so there you go.
I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, so I guess if I could sum up mine real quick, Streaming Tempo on 32X, Tony Hawk 1 and 2 releasing, Xenocrisis on Dreamcast, Wolfman's Got Nards, and the Final Blockbuster.
Nice. Awesome.
None of mine are
I really want to see the Final Blockbuster. That's something that really interests me, but I think before I actually can't seem to get it, but I haven't bothered to try and order it from the main website. But over here, there's no shops that sell it or anything. So
it's also one of the few positive ending documentaries I watched, because like most of the other documentaries I watched this year are like, yeah, Midway filed for bankruptcy, and you know, Atari isn't really a company anymore, and like things like that. So, but Final Blockbuster has a ray of hope, but it's still positive overall.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Yeah, it sounds really good. Yeah. So I'll go for my picks next. So I'll start with my games. My game of the year has to be Ori and the Will of the Wisps. I'm a big fan of the Ori games, even though there's only been two of them. So this is the sequel to Ori and the Blind Forest on Xbox and PC, and also Switch as well. They released it on Switch too. Even though it's a Microsoft-made game, like it's Microsoft owned. In fact, sorry, the studio who made it is not Microsoft, but Microsoft owns the rights to the game. But they released it on Switch as well, which is kind of cool. But Ori and the Will of the Wisps, I think these games are beautiful. The soundtrack is amazing. The gameplay is brilliant, and they've got kind of touching stories almost. Like they're told just through the events that happen on screen. There's no talking or really. Well, it's kind of talking, but it's kind of animal sounds, like not really actual people talking, which I just really like them. I don't know if you guys have actually played any of the Ori games at all, or
yes,
yeah,
I missed it.
Are you a fan, Anti-Chris, or is this another controversial opinion where we don't agree?
No, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, or I don't think I played. I played Ori and the Blind Forest. I have Will of the Wisps. I haven't actually sat down and played it, but I loved Blind Forest, so it was. Yeah, I'll get to it eventually. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it's and for those who don't really know the kind of actual style of game, I guess it's kind of along the Metroidvania style game. So it's a 2D.
It's a Metroidvania with no power-ups.
Well, you kind of do get power-ups. You kind of do get new abilities. Yeah. Because the whole point is like it's a 2D level, like it's a single world almost. So you don't go to different levels, but to get to new areas, you do have to get new abilities to actually be able to reach those areas. So yeah, you do unlock some new skill sets and stuff along the way. And I just think it's beautiful. I think the graphics are amazing. As I say, the music's amazing. So yeah, massive fan of Will of the Wisps. I think it's just as good as Blind Forest. I feel like Blind Forest might be slightly better in my opinion, but I feel like that's because it felt a bit fresher and newer, but I still loved Will of the Wisps. My runner-up, though, is... I've actually got two runners-up, kind of. So my main runner-up is Yakuza Like a Dragon. So a bit like Anti-Chris, I've been really impressed with this game. I haven't finished it yet, but it's one of those games I've been playing quite a bit, even though it's very different to Yakuza, and I don't really like turn-based RPGs. This has been very fun. Like, I've been really enjoying the way they do this. So, it's a really cool game. I love the characters in it and stuff as well. It's fantastic. And another one which I've spoken about briefly, which Chris actually kind of got me to buy, is Control, which technically wasn't released in 2020, but I first got to experience it in 2020. And so Control is made by the people who make Alan Wake, and it's essentially an action third-person shooter game with paranormal stuff happening in it and stuff. And it's also probably one of the closest games I could say you could experience that's a cross between The Matrix and Inception in the way that stuff happens in it. It's like the way the world like moves and morphs and stuff is a bit like Inception, but the gunfights are kind of like The Matrix with like, chunks of the wall breaking off and stuff like that. Really cool. So I'm really impressed with that game and how it works. So see, Scotty's actually editing the outline for one of my next picks.
I'm just correcting it. I'm a little proofreading, and you're fine. It's fine. Everything's fine.
So my movie, I'll get into. There's a couple of movies I want to pick out. One of my movie of the year, which kind of for me was a massive surprise, was Enola Holmes, which is a Netflix movie. Wasn't it? Yeah, it was Netflix, wasn't it? Or am I getting that wrong?
Yeah.
Was it okay, good. I was just in my head, I was like, oh shit, it's Amazon Prime. No, it's Netflix. It's a Netflix movie. It's about Sherlock Holmes' younger sister. And I thought it was brilliant. It stars Millie Bobby Brown. People will probably know from Stranger Things. She is so good in that movie. I just thought the way she does her stuff and the movie and the way the comedy in it and stuff is done, and the storyline's really good. I found the whole thing entertaining from start to finish. I was grinning basically all the way through, and I was like, I've had so much fun with this. So yeah, that for me has been like a standout movie. Like I haven't enjoyed a movie as much as I enjoyed that one. And my
before you move away from that, I just want to mention real quick, I've been rewatching Stranger Things, and she's not stopping anytime soon. Like, definitely the most talented person probably in that series, and how she started in this film, yeah, she's not stopping anytime soon.
Yeah, she is really good. Like I've seen her in a couple of other movies. Like she was in one of the new Godzilla King of Monsters.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Oh, I enjoyed that movie. I don't know about you. But,
I did too. It just doesn't make sense that there are humans in it that we should care about, but that's whatever.
Yeah, I mean, her performance in that wasn't like stand out, I feel, but it was solid. But yeah, for Enola Holmes and Stranger Things, I think she's really stand out. She's a really good actress. Really impressive. And then my runner-up this year, which Scotty has corrected me on apparently. Well, my runner-up was meant to be the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, but apparently I'm wrong. So I don't know. The reason why I put this as a runner-up is I genuinely enjoyed the movie, but also it was a massive surprise for me. So I was not hyped up for this movie at all. The only reason I really watched it was because I'm a Sega fan, and I was almost like, this is going to be terrible, isn't it? And then I watched it. I was like, I'm genuinely enjoying this movie. I think this is a fun movie. Like, it's nothing groundbreaking in it as such, but I had fun. I came in and out and was like, that was great. And Scotty is now backing away. So
I think the biggest surprise that came from this movie is that there's going to be a sequel. And I don't think anyone expected that it was going to be a huge commercial success that would pave way to a sequel. Like, I think that was the surprise. Yeah. It was better than it should have been, which also was a surprise. But I had real big, concerns whether like Sonic was going to be able to play big on the mainstream, like on the at the box office. Like, does Sonic have that power today? And I don't know how much of it may have had to do with all the controversy that led up to the movie's release. Like, how much of that, because that started putting it kind of like in mainstream, like eyes and ears on social media and everything else. So there was quite a bit of buzz that led into that movie. So who knows how much, contributed to its success.
I'm still part of the conspiracy theory that says that this was all a ploy to get more eyes on it. I know it's like super far-fetched because like people lost their jobs over that movie.
And there was zero merchandise for it beforehand. So
yeah. Like all the merchandise was like legit, like horror Sonic.
There was that one costume that got out there, like Party City or something, right?
Yeah.
That one like really scary looking Sonic.
Yeah.
Couldn't say Party City though; they also went under.
Oh really? Oh god.
Yeah. I will say I'm gonna take this to my goddamn grave. Hey, it beat Marvel for best hero movie. But you know what? There was no Marvel movie release, so there you go.
Hey man,
One thing I'll take away from the Sonic film is
the Pikachu movie.
it beat the Pikachu movie.
Yeah.
No one saw that coming.
Fuck you,
Right.
Nintendo.
It did put Ben Schwartz more on my radar, and he's a fantastic human being. I'm glad that I'm more aware of what he does.
Yeah, that's fair.
So,
So you're saying you love the movie thing? Scott.
nope, not at all. I have not. I have Sonic tattooed on my body, and I have not bought that movie. So there you go.
That's a good
Suck it.
movie. That's what it is.
Scotty wants that
for children.
Christmas 2021. I know I'm getting Scotty.
Yeah, tattoo the movie on my body.
Yeah. But,
Should we back up real quick? Red Jaguar had
Oh.
there's some comments in the chat about what we were talking about.
Oh,
He said the Netflix series was not great, meaning the documentary that I mentioned. And he also said, dude, sports documentaries get away with it by being super boring. So I don't know actually what he's referring to. Maybe Pal, you could speak more to that. I don't know.
I don't know what the context was exactly.
well, Scotty, you said about it's like making a video game, a documentary about video games is like making a documentary about sports. That's what you.
There's
that's
just
what
so
you
much to cover.
Yeah,
Right, like video games need their own 30 for 30. And like an expanded series on that.
That would be dope, actually. That would be really
Yeah.
cool.
What is that? What's 30 for 30?
30 on ESPN is a docu-series where they just go topic by topic, but it's like hyper-focused. So they'll look at like a snapshot of a player's career or a team's career between a certain number of years, because there may be like, this is when this coach was coaching for the Atlanta Falcons or whatever insert fucking sports team, because I don't watch sports outside
Yeah.
of so they'll just like hyper focus on all the drama, the setbacks, the successes, all that shit. So video games did a 30 for 30, and they just did snapshots and just like not even like covering the console wars, because like it's been so overdone at this point. Like if we're gonna do anything like that, let's like focus on Tom Kalinske. Let's focus on the controversy with Midway and violence in video games, and just chronicle that entire fucking thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like
That
just,
would be awesome.
just hyper focus on that.
You know what would be awesome? That could be
awesome.
something that G4 could do and like take from kind of what ESPN has been doing with their formula and apply that to the game industry. That could be a real cool series that they might be able to do, because G4 is coming back and
on the phone.
let's do it.
So TJ
That's probably
Kitsune's-
how. That's.
Oh,
go
sorry,
ahead, Graham.
go ahead, Scotty. Go ahead. I was going to read some comments.
I was going to say that's kind of what NoClip does, and that's what Danny O'Dwyer's company NoClip has been able to do, because they did a documentary on like just Rocket League before everyone and their mother asked Team Psionics how Rocket League changed their lives and everything, and they have like a documentary on Half-Life 3, even though it's not really actually about Half-Life 3. That's hard to explain, but you should check it out. They did a documentary on Doom 2016, which was really interesting, really well done. NoClip kind of does that, but yeah, I could see someone going even more intricately into it. And were you about to read the Twitch chat, Graham? Or
Yeah, I was going to read some comments from the Twitch chat.
Yeah, go for it, yeah.
So, Red Jaguar says he's never seen an interesting sports documentary. Fair enough. And then TJ Kitsune said Space Jam was an interesting sports documentary, which I think we can all agree.
Get that shit out of here.
We can't all agree with it, apparently. Yeah. But Chris, Powell even. Sorry, Powell. What are your picks of the year?
Okay, so I'm going to start with the games, then I'll go with my moment and then my movie. So my game of the year is going to be Streets of Rage 4. That is a game that I really had gave up believing it would happen. That was my version, I guess, of Shenmue 3 for Shenmue fans, because I really didn't believe it would ever happen. I didn't think Sega cared about the series. I still don't really think they do that much because they didn't even publish this game. But I hope, though, that its success will cause them to realize, like, hey, this is a series that we should be, like, investing in, because it's obviously popular enough. And it's gone on to win a lot of awards just recently. So I just want to say kudos to those, the development studios behind Streets of Rage 4. I love that game. It's going to be one of those games I continue to keep playing forever, just like many of the other ones, like 1 and 2 in the series. I absolutely love it. I also want to give an honorable mention to Panzer Paladin by Tribute Games. This game came out of nowhere for me. I saw it at PAX East, and I was like, what the hell? I went and visited, and the people that made the game were so cool. They were just super nice. They had, I will say, like, the way they had their press area and the presentation, that like they made it super easy for game journalists to come in there and play the game, record your gameplay there, and then take it with you on a USB stick. That was super awesome.
Oh, nice.
Because I was able to use it and just basically upload my gameplay, on that night. It was really awesome. So the game itself is like I guess like a Metroidvania style game, Mega Man, but you're in kind of like a Jaeger suit. Kind of like in Pacific Rim, something like that. But what's cool is you get all these different weapons. You can even design your own weapon. It's really neat. Lots of cool options. And it's set up kind of like a Mega Man where you can choose different bosses to fight, and then you absorb some of their powers. And you can go on to use it. It's really neat. And they just released the game on Switch a few months ago. They released an update that added a bunch of content and fixing a lot of stuff. So I'm going to be following Tribute Games for sure and seeing what they do next, because this game looks so good. It's so polished. Definitely check that out if you're in the mood for kind of like a retro style game.
You're getting that collector's edition probably.
Yeah,
baby.
Yeah, for sure. Which is good because they sent out a some sort of like press packet earlier in the year with a physical Panzer Paladin in a Genesis clamshell cart, and I thought that looked really, really awesome. And I was kind of bummed because I was like, man, no, there's not going to be very many of these that were made, and no one else is going to be able to get this awesome game on physical cartridge. So now it is coming, and I think that's awesome. So really, really cool. I know that probably means a lot to the people at Tribute also to be able to get their game in physical form.
Nice.
I'd say my moment of 2020 is just attending PAX East in Boston. That was the last major game convention before the big shutdown happened. And a lot of people there, I remember we were kind of freaked out because no one was really wearing masks or anything yet. We just knew that we probably shouldn't be shaking hands. So a lot of places you were just kind of doing fist bumps or elbow bumps, but other than that, there was no masks, and there was just some people had hand sanitizer and stuff. So it was just the really early kind of throngs of COVID, but we were able to have it. And it was just it was a cool experience. I'm glad I was able to go and see what PAX has kind of become, because it's been quite a while since I attended. I think it's been about 7 or 8 years. Ooh. It hasn't been that long. Was it 2012? That PAX East 2012? Was that the one, Graham? Scotty?
I can't remember.
I don't know. I went to 5 of them. So.
That was the one with Sonic 4 episode 1 or 2 there.
When did Jet Set Radio come out on Xbox Live? Because I vaguely remember that was one I went to review.
That's when it was happening. It was a big year with Alien Colonial Marines on the horizon. Yeah. No one having played it yet.
Yeah, we played the multiplayer version, and they showed us footage of the single player.
I want to say that was around 2012. Maybe it was. So anyway, I will say it's come a long way. It's a huge event now, and they announced that they're coming back in June of 2021. And so what's interesting is that was kind of the last game convention we had before the pandemic, and really it might end up being one of the first major ones we get as we try to, I guess, go back to quasi-normal, industry in the mid 2021, because I think it's sometime in June, I believe. And I hope. What's that?
I double checked the dates. It was 2012. You're right for PAX. So yeah.
And so I'm hoping everything goes smoothly with that, because I hope I can attend. And I'll talk more about that later. But PAX East, it was so cool. I was able to spend so much time in the indie area. I was almost exclusively in there. I had so many cool appointments, and I think the indie industry, the indie game, I guess sub industry or whatever you want to call it, is just so alive and well in today's game industry, and I'm happy for that. And I really hope a lot of these smaller companies can survive through the pandemic, make it through, and see their games to realization, hopefully in 21 or 22, and we'll see what happens with that. So,
yeah,
Paxies, baby. Cool. For the movie, I gotta go with Onward. I absolutely love that movie. It was the Disney Pixar movie that came out in March, I believe.
Yep.
And I love this movie because there's not enough like fantasy type movies like this. You'll get like your Shrek type movies or like other type, but this is kind of like more of a D&D style fantasy film, which we don't get a lot of. And this was done like a big budget movie and done in a really cool way. And I think it just tells a really kind of heartwarming story. It's basically about these two teenage brothers. Their father passed away, and they're coming of age. I think the youngest one is about to be 16 or something, and their mom gives them this letter from their father, and it ends up being a spell to be able to bring them back for like a day. And they end up trying to cast the spell, and it goes awry. And these aren't spoilers. This is all told within like the trailer of the movie. So it all goes awry, the spell, and they start bringing him back, but it's only the lower half of his body that comes back. So just basically his legs and his like torso. And so they have to travel and get this other like rare like amulet that allowed them to finish the spell and be able to spend the day with their father. And there's this really, I think, awesome story to be told here. And I think it's great. I mean, it has like Tom Holland, it has Chris Pratt in it. Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Octavia Spencer. So there's a good cast. Okay. John Ratzenberger's in it also. So
no princess.
Right. There's not a princess, which is good for a change. I think it's a different kind of story. It's just about two brothers, trying to relive that moment with their father that they'll never get, and it's a great story.
Cool. I had no idea what that movie was about, to be honest.
Did any of you guys watch this movie?
Yeah, we saw it opening weekend because it was that turnaround time where Disney's like, oh shit, we already did a ton of marketing. There's toys out and all kinds of crap. We can't delay this movie. So hey, guess what? You get it for free on Plus, which is hilarious because then a couple months later they're like, oh yeah, Mulan's coming out. The new Mulan, you can get that for like $30, you idiots. So, Yeah.
I think if there's a stinker of the year for me, it's that Mulan movie. That was.
Oh right.
I watched that the other day, and oh wow, that was. Yeah.
You reminded me that conventions existed in 2020 briefly, and I want to throw in a runner-up that I just thought of right now for another moment that was great for me. The game Killer Queen. For those who have not played Killer Queen, quick summary of that: it's a massive, technically 10-player arcade game where each setup is 5 sticks, 5-person thing. Like think of the X-Men 6-player game almost, but it's 5-on-5 teams, and it's a Joust clone essentially. But it's awesome. Anyway, AJ, his girlfriend Ashley, me, Corey, and oh shit, I can't remember who else played with us. Oh, it was Corey and Antichris's friend. Oh god, I can't remember his real name. I only remember his username of Titanium Dragon Neo. But anyway, we played a round of it.
I like them.
We played a round of it. Connor joined us for Killer Queen at MagFest, and we played around. We entered a tournament. We did so well after the first round of the tournament that someone else asked us what area we were repping, like what team, like almost sponsored team we were or something. We were just like, what are you talking about? And then, but we had fun in that tournament, but it was a cool moment of like people thought we were good enough to be repping a region for that freaking scene.
Oh yeah.
So that was neat. We lost the next round though. But that was my runner-up, so that's 2020, ladies and gentlemen. That's quarantine, baby. Now I look like a man-child.